Simulation Theory by Jonathan Lippy. Appendix. Earth Will Be Remembered, 1999. A short story by Jonathan Lippy. This story is a spin-off of characters from our movie Twinkle Man that we made in 1996. The storyline is based on a conversation that took place in the sequel, Twinkle Man 2, The College Years, that we made in 1998. I wrote it as an assignment in my creative writing course. Okay, first, the Russian sailor and your Nad will connect these lights around the interior perimeter of the house, along with these surround sound speakers, and face them in strategic directions. We'll all be dressed up in the authentic Roswell alien outfits that I obtained from the Halloween store. When Nad and Sailor activate the floodlights and stereo equipment, the freaky acid techno music along with intense blinding rays of light will flood the room. Once that happens, the man who beat Santa's ass, Do It Doug, and myself will ignite some smoke bombs in the doorway and make our entrance, walking in character using a slow, spooky alien limp. The people will have no idea what is happening to them, and their amazement will fuel our performance. Do It Doug stood, smiling in acceptance, and exclaimed, "They'll be so disoriented from the loud music and being woken up in the middle of their REM sleep. Once their eyes adjust to the bright lights, they'll be in total disbelief when they see us in our alien costumes, and basically just watch us rob them with pure delight." I turned and faced the man known as Do It Doug, shook his hand firmly, and said, "Here are some electric metal prods from a farm that we robbed a while back. Your job is to go poke this around the rear ends of our victims and simulate a probing administration. If you want to actually physically administer the probe into any bodily cavities, that's up to you. Act it out as you please. It'll be a little impromptu rehearsal." Uranad added, "We want to give them the whole alien rectal probe abduction effect. They're giving up a lot of good valuables, so we need to put on a good show." I nodded, paced back and forth once, and explained, "I've conducted the proper preparation and research to authenticate this event, so the occupants will definitely be into the show. So what do you guys think?" The man who beat Santa's ass said, "I think the idea is stupid." Santa's ass was the pessimistic one of the group, who never liked my storylines, except his own, and would always find some sort of problem to present that could possibly forfeit us from going through with an idea. His frequent opposition was welcomed, however, for that it provided the opportunity to prove or lose your case to the group, and was a good exercise to keep our wits and courtroom skills sharp. I challenged back by asking why he felt that way, for that I had thought the idea was a fun, yet challenging one. "I'll tell you why," the man who beat Santa's ass said. "First, something like this was done in the movie Back to the Future. Remember what happened when Marty accidentally traveled back to the 50s and walked into somebody's house dressed in that yellow plutonium outfit? The guy who owned the place started shooting at him with his shotgun. That's what's going to happen to us. People shoot at aliens because TV has trained them to. So basically, your idea has been done already." His role-playing, soul-sucking stare ended as he turned around and faced our group. The crowd became his jury, and he began the final statements of his rebuttal. "We work with all original ideas here. Yes, we're a thematic group of robbers, but we create the themes. We don't plagiarize them. Plagiarism is a serious crime. We are simply felonious burglars. We don't steal ideas. We're too creative for that. There is nothing funny, scary, or new about aliens. There is no cutting-edge artistic value to this topic, but those people in the house will still fire weapons at us if we're dressed like aliens. I don't even think the people we rob will enjoy this exhausted theme. Sure, they'll appreciate the loud techno music, and hell, you can't show me a person that isn't a big fan of a great lighting equipment. But I think once they see the alien costumes, they'll identify us as unoriginal thieves, and it totally isn't out of the equation the possibility that they will boo us. We strive to put on a complete show. There are so many great themes out there to be done that if something is half-assed, we don't do it." I planned some concluding arguments while he spoke and then responded, "I think you're mistaken. We will be wearing the authentic Roswell alien costumes. They're authentic. These are the same costumes the aliens wore when they landed in New Mexico in 1943. This is a totally fantastic theme for a robbery. I put together numerous props and did some outstanding research and privacy invasion observations on this particular household for this to be a spectacular show. Santa's ass fired back. "You want us to run in there as aliens. You're not thinking right. You are forgetting that the media has trained passive television and movie audiences to shoot aliens at first sight. You are putting everyone's lives in danger so that you could live out your fascination with UFOs." I took a few deep breaths and sighed to build a dramatic, yet urgent effect for our jurors, Do It Doug, You're a Nad, and the Russian sailor to get into before I spoke in response. This might be our big shot at finally getting a newspaper article. We have to take that chance at open fire. We always put that possibility on the line every time we break into someone's home to do a show. I was feeling the group getting into my role and could tell they were enjoying the intensity of the before combat tone of dialogue I was using. I wiped my hand down my upper lip and chin and said, "Tell me this. What do you report to the police? What description can they give of the burglars of the event? Aliens came into my house and robbed me? People dressed up in authentic Roswell alien costumes invaded my house last night and stole my VCR tapes? What do you ask your neighbors the following day? Wait, better yet, what do you tell them if they ask why the police visited you? Just remember, accounts of alien abductions are still ridiculed by the masses, even though everyone knows they occur on a daily basis. This is the disturbance crime that we've been waiting for. The local news will have to run a story on this. Do it, Doug. Are you with me at least?" Do It Doug took a deep breath, clenched his fist, and exclaimed the same words he always said when he accepted our plan for the night. "Do it, Doug!" The man who beat Santa's ass decided that even though he opposed the idea, he'd go along with it because it was the team's decision for the night. The accepting team of tonight's mission now consisted of the man who beat Santa's ass, Do It Doug, You're a Nad, the Russian sailor, and myself. The group of us made up a unique team or characters who held their own personal stories. The man who beat Santa's ass served his value to the team by claiming to know everything. He went to high school for 5 years, but didn't graduate. But he claimed that he knew everything, and would claim that he is every occupation, doctor, lawyer, nuclear physicist, and his firm belief in this helped him invent all sorts of neat gadgets and fix many things that most people need to take years of college training to do. He got his name when we broke into his mother's house and he beat up her life-size plastic light-up Santa Claus statue. The event became a tradition, and now we bring the Santa Claus and Frosty the Snowman life-size light-up Christmas statues with us and place them outside every house we break into. They act as our good luck charms and watch over the outside of our house for us as we bring the Christmas spirit of giving a great performance to each home we invade. After we finish the show, we all participate in beating the crap out of the Santa statue, and we face Frosty to watch. He is our audience that we attempt to please. Frosty always has a smile, and he lets us know that we did a good job. Do It Doug was 18 years old with black hair, physically fit, and very active. He had a small case of Tourette syndrome and got his name because he would scream out from time to time, "Do it, Doug!" His value to the team was his no fear, give me any job attitude towards role-playing. He would take on virtually any role and act it out with impromptu skills that are the best I have ever seen. You're a Nad was also 18, had a shaved head, and although he wasn't diagnosed with having any signs of TS or any other disorders, he would repeatedly scream, "You're a Nad!" every time he was in an automobile at whoever was driving. "You're a Nad!" He was our technical, handy stagehand guy that usually set up all the props along with the Russian sailor. The Russian sailor was a 20-year-old surfer dude with long blonde hair. When people ask how he got his name, he replies using an accent and dialect that doesn't really sound Russian, but is definitely not American, and says the following monologue. "You want to know about the Russian sailor? Then let me tell you about the Russian sailor. One day I had nothing to lube with." Lube was our term for anything containing H2O. "So I went to the lady at the cash register. I tell the lady, 'I am a Russian sailor. I am here in the United States tonight only. How much American beer can I buy with currency?' I laid the money down and looked at the lady. She sold me the beer. That's the Russian sailor." Another time, he attempted using his father's ID to purchase alcohol. The clerk looked at the birth date and said to him, "It says here that you were born in 1953. He agreed and earned the beer. There are quite a few cashiers out there that award beer to underage drinkers if you give them a good laugh or put on a good show. The Russian sailor's value to the team was his no shame, I'll do anything, go into anywhere attitude, which was a perfect attribute since he would be the infantryman with "You're an ad" who has to go into the area, clear it out, and set up all the props without fear of being discovered. As for myself, I was the heart. I was the guy who held the vision and faith for the whole team that we would someday be discovered and appreciated by the media for all of our efforts. As a unit, we called ourselves the Earth People and hoped to gain notoriety with that name by being known as an infamous scandal clique that people would be intrigued to read news articles on, converse comically about, and wonder when and where we would strike next. We haven't made the papers yet. Someday, the media will appreciate us. We were ready to embark on our mission. At around 2:45 a.m., we had all of our props and equipment ready to be set up around the inside of the house. I had been spying on the family for over a month and knew their sleeping habits. At 2:45, they'd be at their deepest sleep, so we were ready to break in at the best time. The man who beat Santa's ass had this special ultramagnetic skeleton key that he invented one night when he claimed that he understood Einstein's unified field theory of gravity, which enabled us to open all metallic deadbolts on doors. The high output of magnetism also disengaged all security alarm systems. After he opened the door, he walked in along with Do It Doug and myself. The other two guys spread around the perimeter, installing the surround sound speakers and floodlighting. I gave the signal, and the Russian sailor activated all of the floodlights. You're an ad pushed play on the stereo, and the surround sound speaker equipment began playing some really freaky acid techno music on full blast. I ignited the smoke bomb and placed it in the bedroom doorway where the occupants would be able to visually see us come in. Uranad then walked around the house, stealing all forms of media the people possessed and replaced it with our movies, magazines, books, and audio compact discs that we produced independently. The replacement multimedia were all labeled with stickers that said, "The Earth People." The man who beat Santa's ass, Do It Doug, and myself stood in the bedroom doorway, looking at the sleeping victims, and felt the power while being dressed in our authentic Roswell alien costumes. Do It Doug held the shiny rectal probe in his hand. We stood in the smoke waiting for the people to wake up. I felt so incredible and intense, knowing what we looked like in our costumes and standing in the manner that we stood. Such poise, such posture we had. Dressed as an alien, I felt so superior to the humans. We were in total control of the situation, and we were about to give these people an experience that will stay in their memory forever. The lady woke up first and screamed. The brightness from the floodlights on her unadjusted pupils pained her eyes intensely, and she hid her face in her hands, but continued with the same volume and pattern of her screams. The volume of the acid techno music was at a decibel level close to the threshold of pain. She didn't have enough hands to cover her eyes and ears at the same time, so she used her thumbs to cover her ears, and her 4 fingers to cover her eyes. We were protected from the light and sound with our alien masks. She'd sneak a glance every 5 seconds to look at us, and then would just scream again. It was really odd. She'd clearly be looking at us for a short gaze, and each time she looked, she'd have the same reaction. I was looking for more crowd participation. I understand the fact that waking up and finding anybody in your house is very frightening. The 3 of us enjoyed knowing that we must have looked really scary just standing there motionless, and thought that it added to the authenticity of alien movement. We just stood motionless, waiting for the man to wake up. He must have been in a real deep sleep because he didn't wake up initially with the loud music and the painfully bright lighting. He finally came about and had no idea what was going on. As soon as he opened his eyes, he let out a grunt of pain from being exposed to the floodlights. The loud music didn't seem to bother him much because he didn't cover his ears. He was completely clueless to what was going on and couldn't look at us because the light was much too bright. We walked over to him in single file line and put our faces real close to his, staring into his eyes. Do It Doug was revving the electric prod, making small sparks to add to the effect. We must have looked like alien doctors. We were standing, looking over him, with those magnificent floodlights behind us blinding him. I think the guy thought he was still dreaming because he didn't really get scared. He was startled at first when he opened his eyes enough to see that we were standing over him. It took a few moments for our image to register in his mind. Once he figured out what he was looking at, he unconvincingly said, "What do you want from us?" I say unconvincingly because it was like he was tired of rehearsing that line. He didn't say it like he was in total danger. Doug was the kind of person who demands a reaction from the crowd, so he activated his electric poker to full stream and began slowly inching it towards the man's anal area. The man just spoke the words, "I'll kill you," with an accent like Christopher Walken's under his breath repeatedly. The Russian sailor and Uranad were watching from the other room excitedly and began increasing the levels of the acid techno music and the floodlights. As Doug came almost within contact of his probing destination, the guys outside had increased the electricity levels to such a high level that it blew the electric circuit. Instantly, we lost floodlighting capabilities and all hysterical loud acid techno audio levels. Doug withdrew his probe from any further possible penetration and fled out of the room. I did the same thing. The man on the bed realized that everything wasn't a dream and was real life. He looked over and saw his wife with tears running down her face, hunched over into the fetal position on her bed. He started to run over to his mantle and began yelling obscenities at us. "You effing aliens! You come into innocent people's houses? My wife is epileptic! You MFers! You want to scare my wife? You put her in a seizure with your bright flashing lights. I hate your kind. F you! I'm not scared of you. The people of Earth will not stand for this much longer. You think you can just play with our minds and own us? You don't own my mind. You don't own us. You alien doctors! You want to shove things in my ass? I'll kill you, MFers! I'll kill you! I'll kill you!" We all took this as a cue to get the heck out of there. We dropped everything and ran away. We heard random shotgun blasts in the distance. No one looked back, nor did we hear any bullets come near any of us. We wondered what the heck the guy was firing at. We checked the newspapers every day for the whole week. No stories. I couldn't believe it. This guy was firing off his shotgun at roughly 3 a.m. in the morning. When he woke up the next day, he had to know it wasn't a dream. We let off fireworks, blew up electric circuits, and not to mention, we left all of our audio and lighting equipment there. Most likely, he decided that whatever happened, happened, and that the bonus of receiving all of this new equipment weighed out his desire to know the truth about what happened. If the police came, they'd confiscate all of that wonderful, expensive sound and lighting equipment, and that guy would also have to do a lot of explaining of why he was discharging a firearm in public and other things that would make him sound like a loony. That guy will probably start his own rave club with all that stuff we left behind. We should steal it back. I'll dress up as an alien again, too. Maybe then he'd report an odd sighting and occurrence. What do they want from us for us to get some recognition? We had such a letdown from not receiving any media coverage or any media appreciation for this event that we stopped robbing houses altogether. We talked about the alien show a lot. We tried to figure out what we did wrong. We left all sorts of independently produced multimedia at each crime we did, and we never got any kind of recognition. I mean, we'd leave evidence behind intentionally. It just shows that people have to be force-fed the entertainment and told what they should watch. They cannot decide on their own whether or not a piece of art is art. We thought about how much the husband got into his role with his emotional episode of screaming and threatening to kill us, and he apparently associated the event with the movie scene in the movie Communion with his Walken impersonation. The wife was so amazed by the event that she went into a violent seizure. They had a blast. We provided them with the opportunity of feeling alive and the ability to create and experience emotions. The man who beat Santa's ass never let the fact die that he said we'd get shot at for being dressed like aliens, and we did. I really didn't care anymore. I began to wonder why we tried so hard to reach out to people for all of these years, and wondered what kept us producing new things. We never received any sort of appreciation for any of the jobs we did. I wondered why we cared so much to rescue the people from the captivity of the predictable media. One time we were so desperate that Uranad went to an open casket funeral of some person he didn't even know and tried out a comedy act. He played with a dead body by holding it up like a puppet and had it dance and act out skits for the people attending the service. He even hooked the body up to a pulley system and had it fly around the crowd. He didn't receive any laughs. All he heard was, "Get out of here, you disgraceful SOB!" We weren't always criminals. We simply considered ourselves current, undesired public entertainment. before we turned to crime? Sketch comedy wasn't an understood form of expression. There were a rare few who appreciated, but most didn't understand. For 5 years, we created material without a media outlet. All we wanted was to be remembered. To us, it seemed as if there was a conspiracy where those who owned the airwaves would only show predictable programming. We firmly believed their master plan consisted of repetition of themes, characters, and plots to create a defined impression in the viewers' minds on how they should look and how they should live. We wanted that power. We wanted to define reality for the masses. The people were already poisoned by the comforting redundancy of television and the desire to keep up with the status quo that they feared giving into our new reality that we were presenting. The last letdown broke us apart. Our hopes were shattered for the last time. Maybe someday all of those independent media items that we left at the crime scenes will be discovered. Unfortunately for us, the normal life was unacceptable, and to remain looking at each other as a group would be a constant reminder of our failure. When a being writes the history of the universe billions of years from now, Earth will be remembered. There is no doubt in my mind that Earth will be remembered. It will. But will the Earth people? We'd be satisfied with a subtext or footnote that said, "Also see the Earth people." This concludes this section of the appendix. Author's notes follow. Now, while we didn't break into people's houses and rob them, we did used to rent videos from Blockbuster and then dub over it our comedy skit videos and then return them. Or we'd like overdub our own soundtrack. So like the guy in real life who's the man who beat Santa's ass, he had a VHS camcorder that it wouldn't record over the video, but you could record your own narration track into it. So I remember we like recorded over some Arnold Schwarzenegger movie with us doing really bad impersonations of Arnold Schwarzenegger and adding our own dialogue in. We did that with a couple movies, just putting our own dialogue in, and would just spend the rest of the night cracking up what it would be like to get that VHS tape and be wondering what the heck is going on, because you're still seeing Arnold Schwarzenegger, but you're hearing someone else, or you're seeing the movie you think you're seeing the movie that you wanted to rent, and you're hearing this like other soundtrack, and you're wondering how the heck did this happen? Because the first 10 minutes you might think like it's part of the film. There'd be other times where there'd be these like promotional videos that Blockbuster would put out, and we'd record over those and return them. We would like wear masks and beat each other up on film. We did all the things that eventually would become famous, like Jackass and reality TV. There was no way for us to get our info out. Like the only option was public access, and we didn't have cars yet, and we had no idea how to sign up for something like that. And for us to copy things back then, we would have had to had a double deck VHS VCR players, like two VCRs connected together, which we would do and dub things, but we didn't really have money to just keep copying VHS tapes and give those away. Yeah, like nowadays, yeah, no problem. But back then, if you have no budget, you can't really spend your money on blank VHS tapes to dub your skits on to give those away. It takes a lot of time. It's not like the digital age where you just do it once and transmit it to the whole planet instantaneously. There was no YouTube. If all this technology existed in the 90s, man, I mean, it's actually probably a good thing that it didn't exist back then, because we definitely would have incriminated ourselves if we haven't already, in a bad way. So then the characters are from a movie called Twinkle Man that we like to think changed the world. But it probably didn't. But it changed our world. And those characters... Actually, part of the scene was in Twinkle Man 2, as I had stated in the intro. But yeah, we were a comedy group. We would do skits. We'd also do practical jokes. Like one time I signed 1,000 baseball cards. And then at the end of first hour to begin second hour, the man who beat Santa's ass threw all of the baseball cards off the second floor balcony. And when all the students came into the main aisle, it was just raining or snowing baseball cards. And I guess when we would go to school all the time, we just saw everybody trying to conform and act cool or act serious or act not nerdy or not, everybody just wouldn't be themselves. It seemed like everybody was scared and pretending. And so we always just tried to provoke people to get outside of their element or to let down or to get over themselves. I used to wear weird outfits to school. I'd wear like brown leather pants with like a yellow blazer jacket. And then inside the pockets of the blazer jacket, I'd have speakers that would go to a cassette Walkman, and it would play like pimp music. And I'd also have like a pimp hat and glasses and a rope gold chain with a CD on it. Just some real loud stuff to throw people off. Or I'd wear a pumpkin outfit to school. Or I'd wear a Cool Whip container on my head. Or I'd wear an exit sign that was converted and hung on the gold chain that said, "Have you sipped the nectar of Shaitan?" Just doing things to basically stick my finger in the eye of society and say, dude, why are you guys scared? Let me be the bad guy. You guys could point your finger at Lippy and say, ha ha, laugh at me. But the joke's on you. You guys are my entertainment. They were my audience. Sometimes I would wear socks on my arms to school. Everything was to just get people out of their trance. Even to this day, I don't like going to public events because everybody at public events is putting on a facade, a charade, a parade. They're all trying to act real normal. But what the heck is normal? Normal is so boring, and they all watch what they say. They watch their words. Everything is careful. Everything is like damage control. And then you have other circumstances where people won't have meaningful conversations with you unless they're drinking beer or consuming alcohol or smoking weed or doing something that gives them the excuse of an altered mindset. I've just always wanted people to think differently and just break free from their conditioned silence. Now, there's the other side. Some people drink beer and act like a maniac, and that's not cool. Or they use drugs and they'll act stupid and do crazy things. That's not what I'm looking for. But it's all good. Whatever. We did a lot of comedy skits. This was kind of like the metaphor of what happened to the group, how it all fell apart metaphorically. You know, in the author's notes in nearly all these videos, it's like me saying, we invented the future and never got credit for it. And I'm still saying that. As you do these things way ahead of everybody, they don't understand it at the time, and then you get frustrated with yourself, and then later on when you don't care anymore, it becomes the mainstream. There's vindication in that, but you want those years back where you were ridiculed and not appreciated. And I'll give you this for instance, okay, the alien costume. At the time, the ability to purchase an alien costume was very limited. And the discussion of aliens openly just wasn't there. I spent a good part of my life promoting aliens through comedy and through seriousness, but just pushing aliens, gray aliens, Communion, Willie Strieber, Richard Dolan, Bob Lazar, John Lear, Coast to Coast AM, Art Bell, George Norrie, all this alien stuff. And believe me, that was not popular. It was so unpopular, completely unpopular, but I didn't care because I really enjoyed it. And I saw there was such a large commercially acceptable aspect of aliens that if it, given the chance, or if the right person endorsed it, it would blow up. Publicly, people won't say anything about aliens, but you get people by themselves, one-on-one, and then they start telling you all kinds of encounter stories. Now, obviously, in present day, I don't, now that I've gone flat Earth, I don't do space aliens, but up until 2 months ago, I did. And you'd be surprised at the stuff that people will tell you. So I knew deep down people had a desire for aliens. And Dan Aykroyd, I think, is the guy that finally convinced the mainstream to go with it. That he was doing what I had envisioned, this world of alien stuff, because he's like, look, every time something about aliens is on TV, there's a massive viewership of it. And shortly thereafter, Ancient Aliens happens. And Ancient Aliens not in present day anymore, but at one point, Ancient Aliens was like the #1 show on television. It was the hottest thing. And Giorgio Tsoukalos is like the personification. That's the guy with the crazy hair. Is like the personification of who I was, saying aliens for everything. And with the crazy hair. I didn't have the crazy hair, but it was I felt like his hair represented who I was back then. Just trying to just wake people up into all kinds of bizarre ways, whether it was through comedy or deep thought. So, yeah, so that's just one example, was the popularity of aliens. It's pretty ironic now that I don't care about aliens. They're like more popular than ever. And there's so many disclosure groups and people talking about aliens. But, obviously Dan Aykroyd deserves more credit than me, but I definitely feel like I had a hand in the way alien culture is. The way alien culture is matches what I was trying to get it to be. I mean, video games like Grand Theft Auto 5 has flying saucers in it. All right, look, I'm not saying I'm the one that made aliens popular, but I gave social proof to it. So when these alien things would come out, I would supremely promote it. And then anybody that, valued what I had to say, then they'd lend credence to these alien things that are happening, and they pay attention to it. So that's just one thing, the aliens thing. I feel like I think anybody that knows me would at least at a minimum grant that I had some kind of a hand in the popularization of the modern day alien conversation, UFO conversation. This story was actually written for a junior year creative writing class. And what's bizarre too is, check this. This is actually an interesting kind of story. My group, my comedy group, my rap group, my rock group, we all kind of broke up at that point, and I lost my identity. I lost my ability to write. It was the last time I had writer's block. In 1999, at the moment of writing this, I had writer's block because everything I had worked for, I kind of threw away. So I was reinventing myself, and I just there was nothing in me to write about. I was like, man, how am I so uncreative at this moment right now? This has never happened to me. But it's because my comedy was always based on who I was, and losing, kind of breaking up, you lose your identity. So yeah, that's the last time I had writer's block, and it was I didn't like having it. I felt like everybody else. But and it's weird too. In '99, I barely remember much about that year. And 99 to 2000, my junior year of college, I have very vague memories of that year. Everything else I have a decent memory of: freshman, sophomore, and senior. But my junior year, I really have no recollection of it. Which is why this story is based on characters it's like a spin-off of something we had created, because I had writer's block. I just couldn't think of anything. My imagination was gone. And another story I wrote for that class, I think, was called First You Drink, Then You Loot, which is another rip-off of Twinkle Man. A scene in Twinkle Man was called First You Drink, Then You Loot. And then another story I had written for it was The Bucket of Piss, which I embellished a real story that one of the guys from my group had told me, and I had recorded him as he was telling the story. It was like, he was telling it in character, and I took that and I turned it into a longer story and created like a backstory to it. But even that wasn't, pure and real creation, because I was going through writer's block. So everything I did that semester, it's terrible. I was in creative writing at the only time in that period of my life that I actually had writer's block. What a time to have writer's block. I can't even keep these author's notes things under 5 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, how could I have possibly had a writer's block that period of time I did? Although I'll say I haven't had the desire to write a rap song in a good 10 years. So that's it for this video. The next video is going to be short, and it will be the final last video for the book Simulation Theory, based on the papers, the actual interior of the book. The book will be concluded in the next video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.